I was just sitting in my couch, right? Staring at the TV. There was nothing on TV. And like, my ex comes in and she's like, Sarah, what are you doing? And I was like, yeah, I'm just sitting here waiting to die, aren't I?
Welcome to the Bug Minds, the series where we dive deep into the mind of the developers. Today, my guest is Sarah Vieira, which is an absolute powerhouse of a developer. She's always been a person I looked up to, and she has been open about her struggles with depression. She used to have a podcast about mental health herself back in 2018, and I can't wait for you to all hear her story. Now, let's dive in. Welcome to the Bug Mind. Thanks for coming. I'm so excited to have you here. It's an honor, to be honest, to have you here. Can you start by introducing yourself to everyone? What do you do in tech?
Yeah, sure. My name's Sarah, or Sara, whatever you want to call me. I am a full-stack engineer, mostly JavaScript. I knew some Rust, but mostly just JavaScript. And been in tech for a long time, like 10 years. It's been so long. I started with WordPress. Yeah, that's about it. I'm originally from Portugal, tiny Spain.
Tiny Spain.
Tiny Spain. Or as anyone else calls
different.
it, Ronaldo. And I'm like, yeah.
I mean, it's such a pleasure to have you here. And I think you're selling yourself short a bit. Like, I remember when I moved to London and I started getting involved in the React space, you were already like one of the gods of the space. Like, I don't know.
I wasn't aware of this. I was not aware
Really?
of this. Yes.
You've always
This is all
been one
news
of
to
those.
me.
Really?
So you mean
No.
I was a god in London and I moved out? I was not a god in Berlin, Lorenzo. Why did I do this?
I mean, you've always been a very like outspoken person, a very active person in the JavaScript Interact community. I've always looked up to you, to be honest. And
Thank you.
not just that, but back in 2018, you also, in a way, anticipated this project that I'm doing right now, which was a mental health podcast called Brainfork, right? And
Yeah.
you had a guest, you did a few episodes, and what you did in there, especially in the first episode, was talking about your experience with depression. So today what I wanted to do is basically talk with you a bit about that. So maybe let's ease into this part of the conversation. Like, how are things for you now? How is it going with depression?
So my depression is very much come and go. So right now I'm doing much better, but it's also very hormonal, which is sad. So there's that time of the month where things may be worse. But in general, like, things are much better than they were in 2018. Like, I genuinely grew a lot from a lot of the experiences that I've had with depression. So yeah, they're better. They're better.
That's great. And like, just for like our audience to understand what we're talking about, we're not just talking about, oh, you were sad or anxious for a bit of time. We're talking about the actual clinical definition of depression, right? The big one. Can you explain maybe a bit for people that maybe don't know the difference much, like what is depression, let's say the medical one?
Yeah. So I do think there's a lot of misconceptions when it comes to it, and I think like both of us are from a very Latino country. Not Latino, the other word. I don't remember.
Yeah,
the European.
It makes sense. Yeah, the south of Europe. Let's call it.
We're both very Southern European, where like people will say, literally, I've heard someone say, "I wish I had time to have a depression," and I'm like, you clearly do not comprehend the fact. There's also the people who are like, you should just go for a jog. And I'm like, I will punch you in the face so hard. I think there's like a lot of misconception about it. Like, I think a lot of depression, and one thing that I've started to notice throughout my life, and also because my mom has a chronic depression, is that most of the times it's not about being sad. It's about you feel nothing. Like, you don't, everything that used to bring you joy doesn't bring you joy. Things don't really make you sad or happy anymore. Like, you just do things because you have to do them. Like, you have to take a shower. You have to, like, go to work. You don't do anything because it brings you happiness. You do things because you have to do them. Like, you physically have to take a shower. I mean, probably. I don't know. I never stopped taking a shower for long enough to find out what would happen. But yeah, I think that's a major misconception that I hear a lot of people saying. Like, yes, you're sad, but you're sad in a different way. It's not like when someone dumps you. Like, I've been dumped, and, like, it sucked balls, but... Can you say suck balls on YouTube?
Yeah.
It sucked balls, Lorenzo. But, as a 31-year-old divorced woman, it's not the same thing, because you feel the sense of dread when, like, someone dumps you or something really bad happens in your life, but you can feel this pain. What I feel like a lot of times with depression, all you feel is anxious. All you feel is, like, basically nothing. Like, nothing makes you sad and nothing makes you happy. You just go through the motions because you have to live. And also there's a lot of, like, physical symptoms that I think people a lot of the times forget. Like, I hear, like, one thing that a lot of sometimes people say is, like, oh, I couldn't get out of bed. And it's like, when people hear this, like, people who are don't understand a lot about mental health, they think it's just an excuse. But it's like, no, this person physically could not get out of bed. Like, you don't comprehend, like, the impact your mental health has on your physical body. Like, remember that, like, when I was at my lowest bottom of, like, it was a panic disorder, I remember that, like, I literally could not get out of bed, and I asked my mom to take me to the emergency room, and she was like, we're taking you to a psychiatrist. And I was like, that's okay if you take me to the emergency room afterwards. I had physically absolutely nothing wrong with me. Like, I was fine. It was my brain. And it's incredible. And I think most people don't quite understand that. Like, the actual physical impacts it can have. Like, it's not an excuse. It's like, I physically cannot walk to the bathroom. And it sucks balls.
Yeah, like the actual magnitude. Like, it literally shuts you down in a way, and it's I totally agree with what you're saying. Like, it's so clear when someone says depression but they don't mean the actual depression.
Oh yeah,
it's like, oh, I was depressed for a reason. Like, no, you don't.
You were sad.
You don't know. Yeah, you were sad. You were anxious. Like, it's such a shame that such an heavy thing that can, weight on you, it has been, diluted. Like, the word, if you say that word, you cannot assume that people understand the right.
I do think that's
the right explanation.
I think in the end that happens a lot with anything that has to do with mental health. Like, it happens a lot with depression. Like, I have a friend that thinks that she has borderline personality. And people also do that with borderline. Like, apparently, like, they were at this group and, like, one of them was like, oh, some people are so borderline. She was like, that's not how it works. Or, like, with OCD, like, oh, you're just being OCD about it. Like, there's a lot of things that they're just ingrained in our society as things that are not real. Like, they're just, like, this tiny thing that you have. And I think it's definitely changing a lot. Like, a lot of the times, like, if people will say, like, something like that, like, I will hear someone being like, you can't say that shit, bro. It's always a bro. No, it's actually not always a bro.
Well, at least maybe it creates a bit of awareness that your brain can impact the rest of your life in a way. And maybe it will lead to some of these people to, seek medical assistance. So maybe the net is a positive, I hope. But yeah, I totally, I've seen that happen so many times. And there's one aspect about what you said earlier that, like, you had this anxiety incident, you had your mother, like, tell you, oh, let's go to a psychiatrist. Like, how did it happen to you? Like, how did you discover you had depression? Like, how did it all start for you? Become aware of being, what mental health was and, like, being diagnosticated. How was that part of the experience?
Okay, so I was always quite aware of mental health because, again, my mom has a chronic depression, so she's been taking antidepressants ever since I was a baby. It had nothing to do with me. It happened before. I would like to say I did not cause my mom a depression.
Which is something that can happen. Postpartum.
No, it can. That's why
depression is a thing.
Postpartum depression is a real thing. So I was like, I don't have to live with that. So that's nice. Yeah, so I'm always kind of aware. But then it's like, the actual reason to how it started is very shameful to me. So I don't know if back in Italy, Did you have this like wave of like legal drugs that were sold?
No.
Okay, so there's this
when you say
weird
drugs, you
fucking time in
mean
Portugal, and I know this happened in Bulgaria as well because I have a friend of mine that had the
Okay.
same thing. They found this weird hack to basically sell you drugs for like completely legally. Like Portugal has decriminalized, but this was like full on like like they sell CBD at the shop, but
Okay, okay.
this was all chemical. And
Right.
one time I couldn't find weed, and so we got that. Fucked me up completely. Like, and apparently
Alright.
this was a normally normal thing, and that's why they got
Yeah.
like they made way stranger laws in both Portugal and Bulgaria. Was because a bunch of people got really screwed up. Like in my case, I had this massive panic attack. Also, Portugal actually doesn't do weed. Portugal does hashish. This is I don't know why, but I feel like this is an important distinction to make.
Sure.
If you know, you know.
Yeah.
But the point of this thing is, I don't know why I felt like that was an important distinction. But yeah, so this happened to a bunch of people. Like in my case, I had, and another friend of mine also had a panic attack with it. Like
Yeah.
since it was all chemical, like I've always had a tendency for like depressive episodes, and I've always had a tendency for anxiety. Like I used to stutter a lot as a child, like a lot of random stuff. But like after that, it was like my brain woke up to the concept of being broken, and just the worst thing about having panic attacks in my experience, to me at least, was you were constantly living in fear of having another one. Like if I went somewhere, like let's say I went to a specific mall, if I had a panic attack in that mall, I could not go back to that mall because I just connected that mall with a why a mall? I don't even go to malls. Connected that mall with a panic attack and just couldn't go there. So I lived in this fear of having a panic attack, like, all the time. And so it started like that. I then started developing a lot of, like, what happened with that is that I then started developing a lot of anxiety around it. And, yeah, I remember that it's, like, I remember that at the time, I just finished high school, and I was taking, like, this, like, professional course. I don't know how to explain it. It's, like, it's not really college, because I couldn't afford college. And it's not really nothing. It's just like I went to school at 6 p.m. And I remember that I just weirdly could not leave the house during the day. Like, if I attempted to leave the house during the day, I would just, like, straight up have a panic attack. Like, one of the only places I felt I've never actually had a panic attack was in my car. Like, any car. It was just, I felt like I had any sort of control while I was driving, even though I don't. I'm a terrible driver. And, like, I had 1 year where I had to call, like, 10 tow trucks because all my cars were, like, 800 euros. Because I was poor. Like, it's just fucking absurd. Like, one of them just didn't have brakes at a certain point, but doesn't matter. But it was the idea that I had control over what was happening to me. It just calmed me to a point where, like, I would just drive for, like, hours sometimes because it was the only place I felt safe. So yes, that's how it started. That was like a long-winded explanation, and I'm sorry about that.
No, you shouldn't be sorry. There's actually, I wanted to plus one what you just said about, some of these drugs that have an hallucinogen. I don't know how to say the word in English, sorry. Those type of drugs, they can lead to mental health issues. I was aware of that. And if people are interested, there is an interesting, I think it's on Netflix, and it's a series called, like, How Your Mind Works. Yeah. I think they did it like in partnership with Headspace or something. And there are a couple episodes around drugs, and I was so fascinating to find out that I think only LSD doesn't trigger that type of effect. It's like the only one, and it's actually being trial tested in Germany to treat depression or something.
Yeah, in the UK as well.
Yeah. Oh, okay, interesting.
And PTSD,
okay.
I think. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's very fascinating. If people are interested, they should look more into that. But aside from that, there was also another aspect. Well, there are so many things I want to chat about what you said, but like there's one, going back to what you were saying about us being from the southern part of Europe, which is, I think, in a way, very unique to your experience, which is that you had not only your mother knowing about mental health and that not being a taboo topic, but also being someone that has already been through something and she told you about it. So
oh yeah, no, bro, my mom had visions. Like, like she was like 18 and she was like, I don't think everyone else is seeing that.
Wow. Damn.
She had like massive ass depression and she like didn't know because like, let's say my mom is from like 66. So she was 18 at the time. I don't know if she was in France or in Portugal. She lived in France for a while. But it was like, she just went to her GP. Like, you know, like the idea of therapy and like a lot of these things were completely new. So she was just like, something is wrong. So yeah.
That's why. And did you find that, you know, having that not as a taboo topic in with your very close family, with your mother, like, did it help you like accept better the fact that now you had to deal with this? Like, you know, sometimes people end up in like in Italy, I see still that a lot. Like, even if you say to someone, "Oh, I'm seeing a therapist," like even without disclosing the diagnosis or the reason, like sometimes people can look at you still weird, like, "Oh, the therapist is like when you're a crazy person."
Oh yeah,
you know, like, there's
therapists
still
for
a lot
crazy
of
people.
stigma.
Yeah, not my mom. Sorry, a lot of people in my hometown said the same thing.
Yeah, you know, but having that first-hand experience and this person that knew how to handle it, did it help like ease the conversation and for you to feel like, okay, this is something I can control, I can get better?
No, it definitely did help. Like, it helped in a lot of ways. In a lot of ways, like, I think I learned in a very different way than my mother did, also because of our time difference. Like, I wanted to go to a psychologist. Right. My mom has never been to a therapist in her life because it's just not something that existed at the time. And so her, like, family doctor just gave her antidepressants and she just stayed with them and they worked. So, like, she just never really did it. So it's like, there's also things that are different, but it definitely helped me not feel insane.
Yeah, I mean,
and like not feel weak. Yeah. Like, I still felt like I was weak, but like, I know that I would have felt way worse if I didn't have at least like my mom to look at and be like, okay.
Yeah.
It's your fault.
That's... Well, it's her fault, but also she's probably the reason why you managed to get better.
Oh no, I don't mean it. Like, it probably is, but like, I don't actually mean it. I do say it's her fault I'm gay. And she doesn't understand it, and neither do I. But, like, I like to blame it.
Well, that's a sign of a healthy relationship between mother and daughter.
But that's the thing. I think it really, like, we weren't very close before that. And now, like, we are, like, we've been extremely close for the last, like, 10 years. It also does help that I don't live in the house anymore. But, like, I think that thing genuinely brought us very close because it helped her understand me and it helped me understand a lot of, like, stuff. And see, like, I think there's a big hurdle in kids, and I mean kids up to like 25 or something, to see their parents as people and not their parents. You know, like, remember when you were like a kid and you saw like your teacher outside of school and they just felt naked in the supermarket because they had no power over you?
Yeah, or them like, but you're not acting like you're supposed to when we're in school, you know.
That's the thing. So
three dimensions, like,
sometimes I think a lot of the problems that, like, we as kids don't really see our parents in a way where they don't have power. And I think it definitely helped me a lot understand, like, adults are just fucked up children.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Which helped me accept the fact that I'm just a fucked up child. So it helped in many ways.
Oh, absolutely. Like, I think it's probably one of the hardest thing to when you become an adult, to have an adult relationship with your parents.
Yeah, it's very hard.
I personally still struggle a lot with it. But it got better over the last few years. And I think what you also said about, you know, the distance, that helps, I think.
Oh, definitely helps, yeah. Because they don't have power over you. Like, it's also a lot about power. Like, if you live in their house, right? Let's assume you don't pay rent because, like, I don't think any Italian mother would make their child pay rent. Like,
I would agree with that assessment.
Yeah, like, Portugal's the same. I'm guessing, like, you could be there until you're 45. You would try to, like, pay for the light bill and you'd be like, you're my son.
Exactly. Yeah.
But, like, that kind of, like, power dynamic kind of switches, and you have to either talk to them as friends or just be kind of weird. So yeah.
The second. I always pick the second.
You can also be kind of weird. I'm still kind of weird with my dad. It's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard, and not everyone has. I don't think there's a silver bullet for that. But
No, definitely.
Going back, like you just said this thing about, like being in the place, there is this power dynamic, and I think there's also an aspect of like, because that's where you were raised. Let's assume you always lived in the same house. Like,
I did area.
if you still,
Yeah.
if you do that, like, because it's the place where you grew up, like the dynamics that were created there, that's also like your brain is still in that headspace. So it's kind of like, one of the good reasons why having like a separate office is good for you, because you switch environment and you know that in that environment you behave in a different way.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree.
And I think it reconnects well with some of the things that you said earlier, especially, about when you were in the car, like where you were having health anxiety, like that helped you feel better. Like some environments have a positive or negative impact on you. And I wanted maybe to ask you about like this health anxiety, like how does that manifest? What is it?
So like, health anxiety is mostly a better term for hypochondria, because hypochondria had a terrible like definition, but it usually stems from people who have anxiety. So I have I was diagnosed with ADHD and what's the other word? Generalized anxiety disorder. So generalized anxiety disorder just basically means you're always just sitting watching the TV and waiting to like something to die. But the point of this story is, health anxiety is basically you are incredibly scared that you're dying. And you can't really pinpoint why you're scared of this. And then there's this dissonance in your brain. Like, at least, I don't think there's this dissonance for everyone, but at least for me there was. Like, as a programmer, I like to think that I am very, like, black and white. Like, things have to make science, Like, atheism
1 + 1
and
equals
science.
2.
So, like, I was like, okay, I have these blood tests that say that I'm not dying, but yet, why do I still think I'm dying? Like, my health anxiety came from back in the, I don't know when, I think 2000 and something. There was this, like, very fucking terrible thing that happened in Portugal. Like, there was this, okay, not in Portugal. So, the team that I support from football, there was one of the players that had a heart attack, and he just died. Like, literally just died on the field. Like, it was traumatizing to this day. Actually, like, I think there was like a celebration of his like life like 2 games ago or something like that. Yeah. And so like that kind of gets stuck in my head, right? Like it always gets stuck in your head. I think I was in like 6th grade, so I was like 12 or something when that happened. And then when I was 18, I was at a coffee shop close to my school, and a guy that used to go to that coffee shop just had a heart attack. Like, just had a heart attack, like out of nowhere. And the ambulance took 20 minutes. The coffee shop was a 5-minute walk from the hospital. I shit you not. It would have been faster to walk. And I still, to this day, hate it for that. But, and, like, these were things that were always in the back of my mind, I think. And, like, back in 2020, when the pandemic was raging, what happened was, during the Euro, a guy had a heart attack during a game. Like, a player from the Danish team. Like, he didn't die, he's fine.
Yeah.
He's the one in the story that's fine. He plays at Manchester United. He actually went up in his career, to be fair. But, I think when I saw that, it just brought back everything that, like, my brain was trying to forget. And I just became obsessed with the fact there was something wrong with my heart. Like, I became completely obsessed. Like, I would just stare at the TV waiting to have a heart attack. There was absolutely no reason for me to have this fear. There are no heart conditions in my family. No one has ever had a heart condition in my family. I had a, what's the word? When they do tests, they do...
the EKG? Like
EKG, yeah, okay, right. I had an EKG made, like, Germany healthcare is very good. So I had an EKG made, like, and it still just wouldn't help. Like, I felt like I was scared to, like, take a shower because I felt like my heart rate would go up and I would just fucking die. Like, it was just very random things. Like, I would constantly check my heart rate. I actually, that's the reason I still to this day do not wear smartwatches. Because if I do, I'll obsess over it. Like, I can't. Like, I would constantly check my blood pressure and, like, a lot of these things. And it just became a complete obsession to, like... I remember precisely, like, the day I realized that something was really fucked up. I was just sitting in my couch, right? Staring at the TV. There was nothing on TV. And, like, my ex comes in and she's like, Sarah, what are you doing? And I was like, shit, I'm just sitting here waiting to die, aren't I? I should go talk to a therapist. Like, this is not good. So I think, like, health anxiety that demonstrates itself in, like, very differently in different people. Mine was definitely triggered by trauma.
Yeah.
Just seeing a lot of people have heart attacks. Way too many people for, like, a 25-year-old adult, to be fair. Shouldn't see. That's not a normal amount of people.
Yeah, especially if they're younger people.
Oh yeah, no, one of them was not, but the other two were like 27. Yeah. And like, I feel like the best way that I can explain health anxiety is that, like, you are constantly scared that something is wrong, and it doesn't matter what someone else tells you. It doesn't matter what your doctor tells you, what your partner tells you. Like, you think you are going to die, and you don't know why, and you don't know how. But, like, you just become obsessed. And, like, every weird thing that you have, like... I remember this one time where, like, I was playing Beat Saber, like, for, like, 3 hours, right?
Oh, wow.
And then the next day, I had a pain in my my left arm, and I was like, I'm gonna have a heart attack.
There we go.
And then like, 2 hours later, I was like, I played Beat Saber for 3 hours. I think that explains it so much better. So, like, it was just a lot of this, a lot of my brain just immediately jumping to, like, something bad is happening to maybe something bad isn't happening. And
it's trying to find the right excuse to justify the fear that it has.
Yeah, because it has to be logical, right? Like, otherwise your brain just, like, kind of collapses on itself. And, and then it just goes into a bubble because, like, if you just search anything on Google, you're...
Oh, yeah.
yes.
Don't search for medical symptoms on Google.
Or you're dying.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, my God.
So,
and you mentioned therapy. How did that help? Like, did you start see a therapist? Did that actually help?
Yeah, no, I still see the same therapist, actually. Great guy. Great British lad.
Nice.
So I started seeing this therapist. I explained what was happening. I explained all my situation with, like, my anxiety and depression problems. And, like, we did a lot of... The first thing he told me was to just, not use my watch anymore. Like, that was the first thing. And to put up in... Every time I Googled anything that had to do with my health, to put it in a paper, to, like, mark it, basically. To be able to stop doing it. Because it was a obsessive behavior, basically. Like, anything that would hurt in any way, like, you would just put it. And, like... So, I don't think you, like, okay, this is not something that you can relate to. But, like, if you have a period, you will just ignore any pain that's happening during the period. Because, like, if you, like, care about any of them, like, there's so many random pains. Like, your back hurts in weird ways. You, like, I was dizzy, like, 4 days ago, and I still have no idea what the fuck that was. But I didn't ignore it. So I just went into this rabbit hole, like, all the time. And so I did a lot of that. I did a lot of, like, trying to understand where it came from. Trying to understand what happened to these people. Trying to understand a lot of it. And, like, I remember that I think one thing that genuinely helped me, and I will forever be grateful to this random person. Not person. I mean, she's a person. But point is, my family doctor in Germany, my GP in Germany, was this really nice Croatian woman. At some point, all of my doctors in Germany were Croatian. I don't know why. Like, my therapist was Croatian, my doctor was Croatian, my dentist was Croatian. I think I like Croatians.
Nice.
And, like, this woman, I sat down and I said, okay, I have anxiety, and I'm pretty sure it's anxiety. But I cannot get out of my head that there's something wrong with my heart. And I cannot... get it out, like, even though that I know it's probably anxiety. And she just looked at me very seriously, and she was like, okay, we'll do an EKG. And that's it. That's fine. That makes sense. So we did an EKG, and she said, like, There's nothing wrong. I'm going to print out a paper. You're going to take this paper and you're going to put it next to you and you're going to look at it every time you're scared that there's something wrong with you. Because you are probably the only person that has ever come to me and said it's probably anxiety. Everyone else is like, I'm dying. And then I tell them it's anxiety and they're like, nah. And like, she gave me this paper and for like months, every time I was like, wait, what's happening? I would just look at this paper and be like, I'm okay. Like, there's nothing wrong with me. I feel like a lot of the times, all it takes is one kind doctor, but they're so hard to come by. Like,
yeah.
And I feel like that's the saddest thing. Like, a lot of the times, all it takes is like one person to be like, I see what's happening. I will help you, even though it's a waste of money to do you an EKG. Like, but I will give this to you. So, yeah, I've been rambling for like 20 minutes now.
Oh, no, it's such an interesting story. And I think that also like the fact that you get external validation, you know, like someone that says, I understand what you're going through and I'm going to help you.
Oh, no, she didn't understand, but she was like, I know what's happening here. She was like, I just know that this works. You got like 7 of them. We're going to take care of that right now.
Oh, the pragmatism. But no, I really think that a lot of people really need to understand this, that you cannot fight your brain in your brain.
No,
you
cannot
really need to get outside
brain.
Help.
You can try your best to rationalize your brain, and then your brain will just find a way to rationalize the most unrational things. And that's how people get into conspiracy theories.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes people do that as a way to, you know, make sense of their world because
yeah, that's what I mean. Cannot, you try to like, it's hard. Yeah, sorry, continue.
Yeah, absolutely. And so now you've had a long time dealing with mental health, with depression, with anxiety. How does it feel? How is life now? Do you have any, you know, things that you do in your life that, you know, are because of the role that mental health has in your routine? Like, how does you're taking some medications as well, right? Aside from seeing a therapist. There are parts of your life that are still influenced by it. It's not like something that you close it and it's fixed forever.
Oh no, like I think mental health is one of those things that you always have to work on it. I still take medication. I take paroxetine. Paroxetine is an SSRI that's generally used to treat depression or anxiety. Since my depression is mostly linked to my generalized anxiety, it just worked for me. So I was really lucky. Like a lot of people have to go like from medication to medication and just end up taking LSD. And because that's the one that apparently works better. This was not a diss. Like, this is an actual thing. Like, this has been studies on this. That, like, a lot of people that are not allergic, but, like, medication resistant could actually just take LSD, which is probably cheaper. But, yeah, so I still do take medication. I don't wear a smartwatch because it will drive me mad. I try to, like, one thing that I try to do is that, like, if I see that I am overly anxious about something, I try to understand what is happening. One thing that I did last year, like, not last year, like 2 years ago, was that I figured out that a lot of my problems, I didn't figure it out, it was my therapist, but let's pretend that I did it. A lot of my problems came from the fact that I needed to feel like I was in control of things.
Right.
Which does explain the car, for example. And one thing that my therapist said was, like, you're never going to be in control of shit. Like, you're not. Like, you need to learn to not be in control of things. And that's when me and my ex separated. And then I decided that the best way to approach this was to, like, travel for, like, 4 months. And it helped. Like, it helped a lot. Like, I am way better with, like, not being sure of what's going to happen. Like, I'm still someone that generally needs more control and certainty about things, but, like, I don't freak out as much about, like, maybe I'll have to travel last week, or, like, maybe something will go terribly wrong. Like, it's not something that's constantly on my mind anymore. And I think, like, honestly, the main thing that I think is very important is that I still go to therapy. I go every 2 weeks, unless I'm feeling like shit for some reason. And I think that's the most important thing, honestly. Like, I feel like it's been really, really helpful in general just to have someone to talk to. Like, last therapy session I had, didn't even talk to the man about anything that was wrong with me. For some reason, we just started talking about prisons and how the prison system is fucked up and how apparently he worked in a prison in the UK and it was just very depressing, and how I was like, 90% of people shouldn't be in prisons. Prisons should basically not be a thing. But on the other hand, like, I could just rant. Like, you can just rant to this random person that is literally paid to listen to you, which people think is a bad thing. I think it's a great thing. They can't leave.
Yeah. And also, no judgment. I think that's a key part.
They can't judge you because you're just going to stop paying them if they do. And you can't leave. And I think the longer you stay at a therapist, the more he's going to be comfortable with calling you out on your bullshit. Like, I think in the beginning, like, it's harder because, I mean, this person doesn't know you that well. They don't know how you're going to react to things. And I think with time, like, every time I say something to my therapist, and if he thinks it's bullshit, he'll just call me out on it. And I'll be like, you know what, Mark? Fine, whatever. You're right. When you're right, you're right.
Yeah. Like, And it's so good. I think that's a thing that a lot of people are scared of, I feel like, especially when you talk with someone, like, maybe you should see a therapist. Like, a lot of people, sometimes they're like a bit like, oh, I don't want to, be real with a stranger. I don't want to tell them how I feel. And I'm scared that, for some people, there's a lot of, I think, shame and fear related to starting therapy because they're scared that, oh, I'm only gonna do therapy because I want to fix this specific problem, and then everything else will come out bursting, and they will feel like a bad person. And I think that it would be good for these people that have these concerns to realize that, no, everything's gonna get better. I don't know.
Yeah, but it takes time, and I think that's also a lot to do with, like, our generation is very, very accustomed to things just happening, like instant gratification kind of things.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of stuff in mental health, and also physical health, like, is the opposite of instant gratification. Like, you don't actually notice yourself getting better until 6 months later you're inside a pre-mark and you don't want to die. And you're like, oh, this sucks, but because I hate clothes shopping, not because I want to die. So this is great. I'm still not coming back. But, like, oh yeah, one of the things that I did when I started getting better was that I went to watch Union Berlin at the football stadium. That was good.
I remember that, talking about football, since you brought it up again, which is so fascinating. I think that one of the things during our pre-call, we were like discussing a bit our own experiences, and one thing that came out for both of us, because we've been in therapy for so long, is that you learn to see your red flags happening.
Yeah.
And like, oh, okay, for example, for me, is like, I associate my bad periods, like my bad phases of life with, like, I play a specific video game a lot. And you mentioned that for you it's football, right?
Yeah, like, I realized that, like, if I'm having a really bad mental time, I'll stop watching football. And, like, it's something that I've always watched as, like, growing up and everything. And, like, I've learned throughout my life that if I stop watching football, something is wrong. And I should definitely get that checked. Also, like, I've started to, like, recently realize that if I'm more anxious, I play more Power Wash Simulator.
You see, like
I may not be sad. So it's not a sad thing. It's like the game calms me. Because I just, like, sit there and power wash shit. And I'm just like, I should fix whatever's fucking me up. But on the other hand, look how clean that is.
Okay, I don't want to go into like an hour-long sidetrack conversation about Power Wash, because I've learned there is an esports scene and they're doing new DLCs constantly or something.
Oh yeah,
anyway, let's not talk about that.
Oh yeah, they keep doing DLCs. It's great. I love that video game.
Okay, let's leave that for another time. But trying to close it off here, like, Sarah, if someone listened to all the conversation we had so far, they want one key lesson, what should they take out from your experience, from your learning? What should they do themselves?
I think, like, one thing that I always tell people is that you should talk to someone. And, like, I understand that in many cases, in many people, going to therapy is not an option, either because you're still living with your parents or because you can't afford it. Like, let's be honest, like, a lot of places like the UK and Germany have free therapy, but they don't really have free therapy. They have, like, 3 therapists for, like, the entire country. Like, if you try to call the NHS and get a therapist, you'll get a therapist in, like, 3 years. So it's like, unless something is really, really wrong, like, you're probably gonna have to pay for it. And it's fucking sad, but, like, I understand that a lot of times you can't do that, or, like, for any other reason. One thing that genuinely actually also helped me while I was in Berlin was that I went to this support group for depression and anxiety. Like, this one in specific was for expat. I think they called it expats, but, you know, immigrants. Like,
immigrants, yeah.
But, like, it was in English. That was the main thing. But, like, that stuff is really helpful because, like, you are never forced to talk. Like, there were plenty of people there that just never spoke for the entire time. But, like, first 2 sessions, let's say, like, you don't talk and you just listen to what other people are saying. And in the end, like, you've heard so many things from other people that you don't feel like you're a burden about talking about yourself. Like, you don't feel as ashamed anymore. And it's free, and you make friends. So, like, I think that's a really valid option. Like, if you either can't do therapy, don't want to do therapy, or is into therapy, try to look for a support group on, like, your specific thing. It's very, very helpful to, like, hear from, like, average people, because I think a lot of the times you also have in your head that someone with depression just doesn't leave their house, doesn't have a life, and, like, then you hear from people who, like, live their life with depression and they have, like, a completely normal life outside. They look super normal, they look super happy, and, like, you learn that's, like, oh, like, this can affect anyone. Like, I don't have to be ashamed of it. So it definitely really, really helped me.
Yeah, and that's also, like, why I wanted to have this conversation with you, and in general why I'm doing this, because I really want people to understand that it can happen to anyone, and it doesn't fully define you. And, like, oh, you're just a depressed person, so you're nothing else. Like, you can still do everything. Like, I think this episode will come out in a couple of weeks, but basically, like, you have depression, but you're also, like, a software engineer. You do a lot of, like, very cool projects. You're a speaker. You're an MC at events. Like,
I feel like my anxiety and depression actually define me way less than my ADHD a lot of the times.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's, you know, it's not a label. Like, sometimes a label can be helpful, but yes, talk to someone is gonna.
Also, yes, I want to talk about the label thing. Sorry. Sometimes
go for it.
Labels can be helpful. Like, I think a lot of the times, like, you think that something is just gonna define you, like you said, but it's like, I think that, like, a lot of the times, at least with me, I always felt like I was lazy, like I didn't want to do shit. And then I went to a psychiatrist who was like, you have ADHD. And I was like, fuck, that explains so much. It's like when I discovered that I was a lesbian. I was like, oh, okay. So that's not how everyone lives. Oh, fucking hell. Sometimes, like, having someone tell you have an anxiety disorder, you're like, oh, I'm not insane. Like, there's something there. Like, it justifies a lot of, like, stuff that you did, a lot of ways that you felt. Whether you want it to define you or not, like, that is your decision in the end. Like, but hearing from someone else say, you have anxiety, or you have ADHD, or you have autism, it can definitely be helpful. I don't take ADHD medication, but genuinely, that guy just telling me you have ADHD in his thickest Greek accent was one of the best things that happened. God, I love that man. He was, like, weirdly attractive. Like, I've never seen a therapist.
Okay.
It's like a weirdly attractive therapist. But, like,
interesting.
I know, it was weird. Like, I remember thinking, like, oh, yeah, no, I see this psychiatrist, and my friend was like, yeah, I'm not doing that. And I was like, why? No, look at that boy. I'm not going there. Like, Sarah, come on. But, like, the point of this situation is, I think it does, like, a lot of the times having someone just tell you, like, you have this can really help you come to terms with who you are and understand why things happen, and understand, like, I think a lot of the things were just like, oh, I'm not just lazy. Like, there's a reason for this. Like, one problem that I have with ADHD a lot is, like, I tend to interrupt people a lot. And that's something that I've been working on. But instead of feeling terrible and absurdly bad about it, I was just like, this is a problem with ADHD in general. I can definitely still work on it, but it's an ADHD thing.
Yeah.
You're not
I don't
alone.
need
Like,
to feel
plenty
bad.
of people have
Like,
this.
yeah.
Go
I'm
for
not
it.
a bad person because I do this. There's
Yeah,
a
like-
reason that,
Yeah, so
it's...
yes. I'm done. No. I think.
Yeah, no, that's great. No, I think that's a great point. And it goes back to what you were just saying, the key lesson, which is like, talk to someone. Please talk to someone.
Everyone is
yeah.
fucked up in their own way, trust me.
Yeah. Most
I bet
likely.
you didn't think I was fucked up, see? No, seriously.
But yeah, Sarah, thank you so much for coming, talking with me for this time. It's been a great chat, to be honest, and I really hope that a lot of people can take out of it something. I'm so grateful you talked with me. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, maybe we can do it again in the future and talk about, power
Talk
wash
about
and
you.
other things.
We reverse the roles.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We have plenty to talk about me as well. Don't worry. And I love talking
Plenty
about
of
myself.
trauma I can unpack. So much trauma can fit in this
let's
bad boy.
open. Let's open. Yeah, exactly. Let's open the drawers. Let's show all the skeletons. But yeah, that's gonna be for another time. Thank you again, Sarah. It's been great. Bye-bye.
Bye.
And that's it for this episode of The Bug Mind. Thank you so much for joining. I'm going to leave a pinned comment down below. Please let me know if you know anyone that would be a great guest for this series. I'm so looking forward to hear all your suggestions or recommendations and to talk with some more amazing folks. Of course, it's YouTube, so all the like, subscribe, comment, all the things always help. Thank you so much for being around and take care of yourself.